welcome to the agenda here. Our Wednesday, February 26th KMAC meeting. We've got a couple things on the agenda today. I'll walk through the agenda and then we'll talk through the KMAC process so that all the applicants understand what we're presenting. And we'll go from there, but I'll start with introductions. Chris Bryden, KMAC.
Ruel Cook.
We have 4 members here, so we have a quorum. That's good. That means we can make a recommendation. Start with that. KMAC makes recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. We don't approve or deny. We just make a recommendation for approval or deny. We are all volunteers. We're all Kensington residents, appointed by the Board of Supervisors for the projects that go through Kensington. So the process is pretty straightforward. Like I said, I'll go through the agenda. For the presentations themselves, we'll ask the applicant to present first. We'll then close for a moment to the public, and then we'll ask you some questions. Then we'll open the public for comment, and then we'll close again and talk amongst ourselves. We may ask you some additional questions or get feedback from the community, and then we'll close the session, and we'll hope to reach a recommendation. Well, I'll start with roll call. So we already did that, so we're good there. Second is approve the minutes from January 29th. So I think we've got 3 of us that were here. Did you all have a chance to look at it? Yeah. I did as well. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 29th, 2025.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then we'll move to public comment. So this is an opportunity for anyone in the public to make a comment that's not on the agenda. So if you don't want to speak to one of the projects or wanted to make a public comment, this is your moment. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. There we go. We will move on to the first project, which is CDBP. Oh, there's a comment online.
No, there's just, yeah,
Someone raise their hand. Let's see. Was there a comment from Zoom? Okay, just a minute. Okay, good. All right. It's their chance. Is CDBP 24-03059 new construction at 20 Eagle Hill. I'm assuming you guys would the applicant, the architect.
Yes.
Good deal.
I guess I'll do the introduction.
Sure.
I don't know how much time I have.
I'd say, probably let's give it 10 minutes and see if that works. If that works for you.
I think that'll work enough. I'll try to be
Okay.
as brief as I can. Just as an introduction, I'm Tim Lowe. I'm the owner of 20 Eagle, just to kind of give you an idea. Just 20 Eagle Hill. My wife and I live there. My daughter, Obeka, she's at Korematsu. My son's at actually volleyball practice right now, but he can't be here.
Robert, there was a question online, but maybe we can
In the chat.
in the chat just check it to make sure we're not missing something. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Bottom of navigation.
The little red button area. Your question about Eagle. Okay, great. We'll get to you when we go to the public. So perfect. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll give you a little background of why we're trying to develop this project on 18 Eagle Hill, which is the proposed project that we're talking about.
So you own 22? You're in 20.
We're in 20.
Okay. You did a project several years back, right?
Yeah, that was in 2012, I believe. It was a while ago. I don't think I was at the meeting at the time. And then so we moved into 20 Eagle in 2010. At the time that we bought it, 18 Eagle was an empty lot that came with the property. So when Kathy and we moved from New York City and kind of came to the Bay Area, but when we found this house, we just kind of fell in love with Eagle Hill and the views and everything like that. So my mom here, Cecilia, this is the project that we're trying to build for her. And when we bought the project in 2010, we always had the intent that eventually we'd probably have a house for our family and our parents. But obviously it wasn't the right time. In 2010 and 2012, we weren't really even thinking about it. We were just keeping the lot open and obviously paying property tax and that. Here's my sister, my only sibling. She's younger than I am. She came from DC, and once I moved here to Bay Area, I told her to come here in 2011. So she moved to Kensington in 2011. She has 3 kids. This is Santi, but the other 2 are younger than her, younger than Santi. They have a daughter and a younger son in the middle. So then, unfortunately, I'm a neurologist, but my dad passed away from essentially a big stroke at Alta Bates Hospital. I was actually in the hospital at the time working there in 2020. So around that time was, my mom, we actually moved my mom and my dad out in 2011 from New Jersey to come to the Bay Area, but they couldn't find any properties in Berkeley. So they moved down to Oakland Hills. And so they lived down and make that drive pretty much every like 2 to 3 times a week just to on Grizzly Peak. So my mom's a widow and she lives about 30 minutes away down Grizzly Peak. This property here, 12 Eagle Hill, was owned by the Pitzers. I always mess that up. They owned the property for a long time, I think since 1940s, and it was never on the market. And it came on the market, not even on the market, and really just through correspondence, because you're always neighbors with them, even though they lived in Illinois, I believe, is that right? Ohio, sorry. They asked us, hey, are you interested in buying our house? Just as just a throwing it out there as a conversation. And that was in October, and we essentially bought that house on 12 Eagle. And the rationale behind that was because Kathy's parents, my mother and father-in-law, they're 86 years old. And they live in Southern California, and they tried to buy a place in Albany, and the deal fell through a couple of years ago. So this property is pretty level in, and they're 86, and they're using canes and walkers. And so that was just a great opportunity for us to kind of get the family together, since we knew Kathy's really the only sibling there, so no one else to support them. So this current place is being remodeled to have her parents move in, and hopefully that will be done in a few months, but that's the intent. So you can start seeing, like, when my dad passed away, we started thinking, okay, now this is the time to bring all the parents. My mom is 77 and lives by herself, and we said, this is what I think we need to do. So I think you all know we had this meeting scheduled for on January 29th. And then some of the neighbors felt like there wasn't a time to comment on the project and things like that. And I believe it was a voluntary, and we just said, okay, that's okay. We'll just move it to next month so then everyone could talk about what their concerns were about the project. Because obviously you can see it's a small community, this Eagle Hill. We all interact with each other. We all park in the same place. We all share the same parking lot every day. So this is what we kind of heard from the neighbors and their concerns. We understand that, sure, this is an empty lot on an amazing view of the bay. And if any of you have ever been on there, you know it's a great view and people come up there. So we understand that view was precious. I think we've always been attentive to try to trim the trees down, keep the lot clean, and do all the things that we could to preserve the views and everything for the community. But now there's like a reason to build on the lot, obviously with time. I hate to say time taking, but there's time we need to build for that, to kind of support our parents. And having both parents-in-laws with 5 grandchildren all in one place, right, is just like this unique opportunity for me to at least, at least from my culture, is like really take care of the parents, and that's how we feel. So I'll let Jack do all the architectural discussions of the project about why it's so long or why it's so big or everything else. But I think these are the concerns that I heard from the neighbors. We don't want the views to be blocked. I think the neighbors understand there's going to be a property there. I mean, we have this demand to build something there now that my mom's a widow and getting older, and there's going to be some accessibility issues in terms of walking, getting around and driving. And her parents already in Walker and Kane, our Eagle Hill, they can barely get down this because it's very sloped. They have to hold onto the handing rails here. We probably should have built the steps narrower because they can barely get do the steps, navigate that carefully. And so our hope was, hey, if we could at least get this as flat as possible so that easy in, easy drive, and not have to navigate a wheelchair or something like that on a very steep slope. So other things I heard from the neighbors, and Kathy's been kind of fielding all those questions and emails and phone calls and everything else from the neighbors. The garage is too high. Maybe it's too obtrusive in the front where people are coming in. Maybe the lot needs to be even graded lower. Maybe it's too large for one person, my mother. These are the kind of things that we've heard. And I think Kathy and I have always been, I think, reasonable neighbors. I think we always agree on projects that other people want to build. We're not here to ruffle any feathers. But I don't know if KMAX heard these things before, but Eagle Hill is kind of contentious. It's not a happy family, happy neighborhood thing. There's been a lot of battles. I think a few years ago, we repaved this. And even though we all just agreed that we needed to fix the driveway, we needed to fix the road, we couldn't come to any agreement. Everyone's fighting about the parking spots, the places. It was just like this big mess. It was an argument. And so why am I talking? I mean, for you, everyone who knows the neighbors, like, I don't talk much. Kathy's the one who does everything, interacts with neighbors. She's the social one. She does all those things. But she's kind of going crazy a little bit, like with all these emails going back and forth, everyone discussing about the project, everyone meeting at the hill, saying you need to do this, you need to flatten the roof, you need to do this, you need to put it lower, you can, build it lower down to the ground, so it's not going to obstruct the views. And we hear you, I get it. But you have to understand, my concerns are, my mom's kind of has to go in. So when we designed this with Jack, it was a great opportunity and he'll present it. We wanted something that my mom would like and something that was accessible. And why is it so big? Because yeah, there's bedrooms downstairs. So then if there's a helper that's needed, they can help. And so that's kind of the background behind the project. So I know there's been a lot of emails back and forth, and I think with our neighbors, and I kind of said, I think after a while, we kind of got really tired of all the emails. I think we'd rather just do it in front of KMAC. I understand we might have to have more meetings. There's going to be backs and forths and all those kind of things. But just getting bombarded by emails, and she's the one who's the contact person, it was a little too much. She's not been in great state. So I'm going to do most of the talking from now on in any future KMAC meetings. But that's the background. For us, it's the time to build here. I mean, we didn't really want to, but now the situation has come that we have to do that. So I hope maybe Jack will kind of give you the.
Yeah, we'll do it when we open the public, so that's not finished.
Okay, great. Let's go back.
Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, so if you haven't been up here, this is the lot in question. As Tim said, it's between two houses that they currently own, and so there's a great view of the bay. You can kind of see Golden Gate in the background. Next. Yep. So interesting kind of collection of homes. On the downhill side, they're generally fairly modern ranch homes. This is the lot in question. So 20 Eagle Hill has a driveway that goes further down. The adjacent home is, I think, 24 Eagle Hill is actually quite a bit forward.
Can you not use the pointer? It's actually showing right in my eyes.
Sure, no problem. Okay, I'll just point. So 24 Eagle Hill is, it's actually, there's a garage up front, and then there's a house that's separated in the back. Next. And so we know that a lot of people here are from Eagle Hill, but there's also a condition on Edgecroft, which is the back of the lot, I think we need to consider. Edgecroft has this wonderful canopy of live oak trees, which is kind of shields the homes from the upper part from actually being seen. So this is actually, sorry, this is actually 12 Eagle Hill. And this is 20 Eagle Hill. So the current canopy does a great job of covering that up. So we wanted to kind of preserve that in terms of the design considerations when we were designing this project. Next. So this is a site plan or an aerial view of Eagle Hill. One thing you guys will notice is that so it's called 20 Eagle Hill, but we're hopefully going to call it 18 Eagle Hill. So 18 Eagle Hill is a much narrower lot than the 4 other homes that are on either side of it. And interesting thing is, so for example, 24 Eagle Hill, 20 Eagle Hill, 12 Eagle Hill, and maybe even 8 Eagle Hill has a good portion of the built area that runs parallel with the grade. And they can do that because their lot is quite a bit wider. Whereas 18 Eagle Hill, I think the front of the property is roughly around 30 feet, and in the back is around 55 feet. It's quite a bit narrower in area. So there's this linear arrangement that has to happen. And just there's some comments about the square footage of it. The actual habitable area is 2670, not including the garage, and there's a deck underneath there that gets counted in the gross area, but it's within, within the general characteristics of the rest of the homes on that hill. Yep, thanks. So our site strategy was to create basically 2 interesting boxes. One was the garage, which had a roof shape, and then one was a living space that was here. And then between it, we wanted a kind of a flat roof area and then a south-facing courtyard. And so that developed along in kind of a linear fashion because of the width of the property. That was the only thing that we could really actually do. And you can see from the site plan, these are the existing trees. There's that's that canopy that we wanted to keep intact because the house itself kind of nestles in with that back area, and I think it's going to be a kind of a great blend of the house itself and the trees on the back of the property. Next. So it's just the floor plan. There's a courtyard here that's actually level. If you know anything about a Bay Area, we have all different types of microclimates. And so the nice thing about this south-facing courtyard is that the house itself kind of blocks it. So that was kind of the genesis for kind of orientating the kitchen, the hallway, and the entry into the space. And they all kind of flow out into this courtyard area. And then on this corner of the house, there's a deck, take advantage of the views as most people would want to do. But also at the time we designed this house, which we started in 2022, in the mid 2022. So it's taken us 3 years to get to this point. We did this deck, but also it's also a step back from the adjacent property. So there's actually a greater distance between those two. Thanks, please. This is just a lower level, just 2 bedrooms. There's a bath here and some space, and then there's a deck that's off of one of the bedrooms. That's just more of a consequence of the fact that the lot slopes down. So you can see the 2 forms that I talked about. So the garage is one, and then the back is the living, dining, kitchen area is another form. And so they're kind of opposites each other, and they're kind of creating a dialogue. But the other thing that it's doing is we slanted the garage roof or the shed roof up in this direction to kind of minimize the view through. And the living space is actually about 8 feet from the edge of the cul-de-sac at the top. So it's actually quite far, and it kind of gets very minimized. And the same could be said with the garage, which is actually 35 feet away from the edge of the kind of the paving area. So proximity, it's back quite a bit. And then we use some dissimilar material in terms of non-combustible siding to kind of distinguish between the 2 volumes with the 2 shed roofs. And then the flat area having a kind of a vertical orientation, and these, the siding on either side having a horizontal orientation, and the courtyard spaces here. Deck below. And this is just the other side. This is the flat roof volume, and these are the other two volumes. So yes. These are just some sections showing the the spaces and how they feel. So this section, this is pretty key to us. So we wanted to create all the living spaces that Cecilia would consider in her daily life to all be just basically on one level. So from the front of the house to, from the front of the house, from the garage to the back of the house, not necessarily getting into the garage just because of the slope, but within this space, there's no obstructions in terms of stairs or that kind of thing. And so that was kind of pretty important in terms of how this was laid out. And then there were some other spaces below in terms of bedrooms and bathrooms for, like Tim said, for future caregivers potentially, or grandkids if they want to get away from their parents. Next. So yeah, so here we have some 3D images that we're going to show you, which are in your drawing set. But we just wanted to show this. So this is our articulation of the two kind of roof masses kind of being linked with this flat roof space. The courtyard area is here. And we'll probably change this into maybe a ramp instead of the few small steps that kind of lead up to the garage, just to make it easier. And this is just another view. And this is from the side view. So you can see it kind of, it's a downsloping lot, but when we get to this point, it starts to steeply drop off. If you look at your site plan drawings, you can see the topography are very close together towards the bottom of the lot. And then this is the back of the house, just kind of showing you the oak trees and hopefully being in that canopy for the back deck. And then this is the living space, kind of take advantage of the light and the view on that side. Next. Just another image. So we did a photo montage. This is 12 Eagle Hill, and this is the outline of what you actually would get blocked, because this is actually built structure. This is not tree. There's obviously there's oak trees. There's also some tall conifers that kind of impact the view. But we wanted to kind of represent this because this is actually man-made, and our structure will be overlaid with that. So this is the outline of 12 Eagle Hill superimposed upon the garage. So it's just basically this portion of the garage that is, that is adding to in terms of minimizing that view from that angle. Essentially, you can still see a lot of the bay. This was taken at 1 Eagle Hill, which is kind of, if you're facing the property off to the left. But we wanted to kind of give a kind of a broader context in terms of what you would see and what you wouldn't see. Okay, so usually when we're presenting projects, or usually when I'm presenting projects, you're doing a new house, you have two neighbors on either side, you have to deal with contentious issues. We're fortunate, very fortunate, very rare to actually have Tim and Kathy own these two properties. And so the house itself, we've also, when we did design it, we did take into consideration, spaces around this house and how that relates to that deck and kind of pulling that back. The other thing is, which it might have changed things if we had known earlier, but the planning department said because this lot was so old, there were lesser setbacks than what's required than other properties. But we like the design, and we were just going to keep that as is. But the other thing I wanted to also point out was there are other homes that get impacted by the structure, but the distance to those homes are pretty large. So this is basically 119 feet, and the angle of the impact is only about 11 degrees if you're at 10 Edgecroft, kind of looking out. So just, it's really kind of a sliver. And same thing with Eagle Hill. So we took that picture kind of at the edge of the driveway. The same thing at 1 Eagle Hill. I think this is like 138, and this is only a 7-degree kind of impact in terms of in terms of the garage kind of impacting one's view. So, you know, I think the context of the project is a little different than other projects because really the impact that the neighbors have are if you measure how the house or a new project is impacting them, this is kind of a condition we just don't see in kind of our urban, kind of a more urban area. With these distances over 100 feet, we're talking about. So when you're listening to the public, I hope you take into consideration this last image and how these people are being impacted. It's not like, for example, if 20 Eagle Hill was owned by somebody else or 12 Eagle Hill, it's across a pretty large cul-de-sac and then beyond the cul-de-sac edge to their house. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, next question to the applicant.
I have a question. So can you bring up the garage or with the front of the garage? I need the pictures that show the garage.
Okay.
So the pitch on this, is it mostly a design choice or is there is that the minimum pitch you need for drainage, et cetera?
It's a design choice. Yeah, it's a design choice.
Okay. So it's probably about 2 feet higher than you need to do in the building.
Possibly, yeah.
I think the other thought was, I mean, I think the neighbor at 8 Eagle has solar panels. I think they have to be on some kind of curve. We have solar panels on 20 Eagle Hill. So our thought was slanted and putting that rather than pitching in necessarily a flat roof and then having to put solar panels anyway to confidently obstruct views anyway. I think aesthetically, we like that view, but at the same time trying to minimize the like looking straight through the house. There's still an opening there, so that was kind of the design thought.
Additional questions? Okay, we'll close it. We'll open to the public. What I'd ask is we'll try and keep everyone to 5 minutes for comments on 1 Eagle Hill. So I'll put on my official timer. And then if you can, again, give us your name, your address, and again, you know, whether you're for or against the project and then what those primary reasons are.
I think we had Alex pick up.
Okay, we got somebody online. Let's start there.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
You bet.
Hey everybody, I'm Alex Pickup. I live 59 Edgecroft Road down below. My only question is, given the location and obviously steep access to this site, just wanted to know from an architectural construction standpoint if there were any plans to do any significant construction from below on Edgecroft Road, or if it's substantially going to be completed from the top of the hill.
Alex, no, top of the hill would be the preferred way.
Yeah, okay, that's what I wanted to have in consideration. Obviously, you know, Edgecroft is a pretty narrow one-way street here, and you know, anything significantly, you know, impacting the traffic or you know, flow down below would impact quite a large amount of neighbors down on Edgecroft. So wanted to hear from you about that as far as construction. It sounds like with the trees being left intact as well, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that's my sole question.
Good deal. Thank you. And just out of curiosity, for or against? Just wanted to ask.
I do not have any objections if the work is being done from the top of the hill.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay. Okay, your name and your address?
My name is Hillary Goldstein, and I own a house, that, I was on Eagle Hill.
Can you go ahead?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
That's not
Okay.
my interest.
Okay,
But I had another house in Kensington, and I had a situation like this, and all of a sudden, they had a pitched roof like your garage. And it did nothing but took our view away. And so when I see that garage and that pitched roof, this is gonna be the second house. I happen to have 2 houses in Kensington, much for family like you have. And that just does nothing. I don't even understand. Is it for storage? I never understood why they took my view away on Copper, with this roof. And it didn't do anything other than maybe was an aesthetic. And so their aesthetic took my view away. And this garage looks like your aesthetic, which I can appreciate, but it takes my view. Anyway,
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure, or can you just give me?
Alex Friedson, I live in Hillary in Danny's house.
Okay, is that?
10 April, 10 April.
Oh,
I have
yeah,
a couple
no
of questions. One, did I hear you say that the reason you did the pitched roof was it affected the aesthetic of not having the solar panels of the house next door? Was that?
No,
I didn't understand.
No, I was saying, I believe solar panels, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not the architect, but I believe solar panels need to be on some type of angle to optimize.
No.
Is that not correct?
Good.
So no, but it had nothing to do with the other property.
So it was ostensibly an aesthetic.
Essentially, it's an aesthetic, because as you know, in the back part of the house, there is the slope, so we wanted to balance it out.
Right, understood. So the follow-up question is, are you planning to put solar?
We'd like to put solar,
So that goes on top of
it
the,
goes on top.
yeah, so we got that issue. That's what I thought we meant. The other question was, in your picture of the projection of the garage from One Eagle Hill.
Yes.
In that picture. The problem for me with that picture is it's from the highest point on Eagle Hill. So you get, I mean, that's the best view of the whole bay. And so my property is, 6 or 7 feet below that property. I mean, across, but not 6 or 7 feet, across my whole property, it's like 6 feet. So it would be helpful to actually see that view that you presented from a place other than just the highest point. Sure. Because then we know what other impact there was. Anyway, those are my.
Perfect, thank you. Additional comments? Name, address?
Question, my understanding was.
Name and address first.
Andrew Condi, 8 Hitchcock.
Awesome, thanks.
Back on to Eagle Hill. Can you put up the picture of Eagle Hill?
Oh, the site plan or which image?
No,
The
where
one
you
from
see
behind.
all the
There you go.
houses.
The overview, the aerial.
Okay.
Okay, is it okay if I go up there?
Yep.
Sure.
So. This is my home and this is my back deck, which has been there for many years. My house is the oldest house on the hill, 1924. It precedes the Oppenheimer house, it precedes all the houses. I've been there for 35 years. So I've enjoyed that view. I want to point out that every other house that's west facing has a down sloping driveway of various degrees. Some are relatively calm, some are much steeper, like the house that's in the Debbie. So I and other neighbors can't quite understand why there can be some kind of down sloping. Also, I took pictures of what this will look like with, my understanding is 8.5 feet on the left side of the garage, 12 feet at the right side of the garage. And so if my housemate took these pictures of what the view will look like in the left and the right, and you can see, if you look through these, much of it will be obscured, including on the right side. This is a night view, by the way. You love to see that. So I'm standing here to support other community members that don't even have houses on Eagle Hill, many of whom come up every day and every evening to appreciate it, make comments and, wow, are they really gonna do that? So I don't want to stop these kind folks, and I feel very good about them, from building something that works. But I'm hoping there can be some kind of compromise so that they get what they need, and we get, here's the height of that garage on the right side. It will obscure the view of the Golden Gate Bridge from the center of Eagle Hill, where people congregate to look at it. And I want to speak to that. And my understanding was that the architect was going to be submitting some updated drawings from what we were shown a month ago. It seems like that's not true.
Go ahead, where you get a specific drawing through now.
I'm happy, here's the issue about the back and forth that we got.
Yeah.
there were some concerns saying, people were saying, you should just flatten the roof. Just flatten the garage so we don't obstruct the views. And so understand that for some of you who are architects in here, just asking architects, just do that, just make it happen is not very easy. So Jack's on vacation skiing, we're on ski week, and we just come back, and so Jack he just came up with it today. And so, yes, we do have alternative of what that looks like, a flat roof. We don't personally like it aesthetically, it's not looking great. We don't think we like that, but we're happy to show that to you to see what it is.
I think let's take the feedback from the community, and
Okay.
you can see if that
Yeah.
fits. So we get to that will be concerned.
Right, so just two more comments. I mean, part of their house is flat. So if you like angles, make the house angle. You can-
Yeah, we can't give, we don't give design.
All right,
That's not our department.
right, okay. So I have a request before we proceed, and I'm hoping there's another meeting, and my request is that the architect and the owners, and I would be happy to contribute, erect some real story poles, so we're not guessing, we have different perspectives. Put up some story poles, and then we can all see what's really happening there, because I don't want to stop you from building your house, but I'd like to find a reasonable compromise of how you get your house, and we keep enough of our view. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for the picture. Additional comments?
I have a few comments too.
Sure.
I'll try not to repeat.
Name, address? Thanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna come up also if that's okay,
You bet.
because I may want to point again to the screen. I'm Kristen Lindsley. I live in One Eagle Hill, which is the Oppenheimer house here. We were built, this house was built between 1924 and 25. I believe this is the Tenny was built around the same time, 24, 25, 26. I think I had 26. And then just for a little bit of history, so these houses were built, and then when these houses were constructed, the person who owned Eagle Hill at the time, and I don't think it was Oppenheimer, I think it was the prior owner, sold these lots to the owner with covenants on them. Back then, it was long before the Kensington ordinance existed, which I think was passed in 1984. But these sales happened in the 50s. I'm sorry, 40s and 50s. I don't have the exact dates, but they did it with covenants. And so they set it up so that the tops of these houses, to respect the view for these owners and also for the community, would be below a certain line. And that's why all these houses are below a certain elevation that's set forth in these covenants that are filed with the county. So I can't speak to the technical pieces of that. The covenant doesn't apply to 18. It applies to the 20 lot and the 24 lot, as I've been able to read them. They're kind of dense and hard to understand, but anyway, so that's sort of started the tradition of having the houses be on a hill be very low. As I understand it, 12, I don't know if it had a covenant or not. It was built in 1941. And the people that lived here at the time were the Oppenheimers. I think there was a professor which is there, but not 100% sure. Those folks would know the history better. I've heard Frank Oppenheimer lived there, but I don't ever know that that was confirmed. But at a minimum, at one point, there was another professor at Cal living there. And then this was Professor Pitzer, who was a very famous chemist, physical chemist at Cal. And I think he also was on the faculty at Stanford, if I'm not mistaken. But 20 Eagle Hill was the Dobbin family, which likewise were a very prominent chemist on the faculty at Cal. And then here, they've been various families that bought from the other lots a little bit later. So my only point being that there's been a history of respecting these views, not just from the standpoint of the owners, but my experience is we moved in 1998. We bought this house, and ever since I've lived there, there's been just a tradition of everyone coming up literally every night. I saw a guy tonight, and I walked out and said hello to him. He was up running and came up to see the view because it reminds him of other views that he used to have in other houses he lived in. But literally every night you have people coming up. And on the holidays like 4th of July and New Year's Eve, you have whole crowds of people coming up with their wine glasses, and It's like a community event, and I think it's very sweet. But it's also just a community asset that I think that ought to be taken into account. And as Andy was saying a minute ago, like the hill is very sloped. So people don't necessarily stand on my porch over here to see the view. They stand here. And so it's quite a bit lower. So I think some of the pictures, I do agree that the visual from up here is not really the impact on the community from the view that would happen if you were standing down here, which is where most people do come. They don't kind of tread over on other people's property just to look at the view. So to me, that's a huge factor. I know that, I don't know the ins and outs of this board, and we had some construction we did a long time ago, so we had our stuff looked at. And so that affected, sort of, that's my main experience with the board. But what I would ask for is, I 100% agree that we need some kind of storyboard or flags or something that really gives people, not only us, but people in the community and in Edgecroft and elsewhere, people come from all over Kensington and even other towns to come and stand here. And so people can know about it and be able to come up and have a look at it and see. So that would be important, I think, for everyone. Updated plans, if there are going to be any, or alternative designs that could be considered for the garage, etc. We would very much appreciate it if something like that could happen. And then we had talked to Tim and Kathy about, and I thought there was an idea of at least potentially moving the house down the hill a little. Now, obviously, I know you guys don't tell people what to do, but we had thought there was going to be consideration to moving the whole structure down, so it wouldn't change the size, but it would get it further down the hill so it's lower. And or doing more grading to get the whole thing lower, because there's many things I think you can do. We appreciate the grove of trees, but there's a boatload of trees all over this area.
Yeah, we can't delegate, so we're on time, so your issues of view obstruction.
Our issue is view obstruction, and the other thing I was going to mention is site visit. KMAC came out and did a site visit for us, and I think that was very enlightening to everybody. That's what I would ask. I had a few responses to what other people had said, but am I out of time?
I would just say, are they in support or just the same issues? Are the comments?
Well, it's more to comment about family stuff. I just wanted to comment on that. It isn't really,
I don't think it'll pertain to.
Yeah, the family issues don't matter to the house, so.
Yeah.
okay, so it's, all right, so it's views and other things that you all are looking at, not
Awesome.
family needs and stuff like that. Okay. Okay, all right.
We don't get that one. Any other comments from the public? Sorry?
Yeah, I hesitate to say this, I'm also an architect, I think Jackie Myron's
Address too, sorry.
8 Eagle Hill.
Gotcha.
And really, I think any house built there is really going to affect the views, like a lot, because it's a meadow now. And so we can argue these things, and like, I like it designed the way it is, we're not, but maybe like there's some things that need to be done to appease, but it's still gonna be a house and it's still gonna obscure views, and there's just no way to get around it. So, and I'm sympathetic to people. I've lived in places and people have built and I've lost my view. That's why I live at the edge on 8 Eagle Hill, because nobody can do that anymore. But yeah, that's just the way it is. I mean, they own a lot, and it's not like they're building a 2-story building in front. It's low, and yes, the slope can be argued, maybe they can go down a little bit, but when you go down into a hole, what happens to the houses on either side? You're doing something to the soil that affects, it's like very narrow, and the houses on either side are really close, so you can't just build down. Doesn't work, because of the existing grade on either side will affect those foundations. So, I hope that we, unlike in the past, can achieve a happy compromise and all go to bed with cookies and milk.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
a final comment, or because I commented before I came again?
Well, let's let the applicant, and maybe just take a quick response, and we'll take one more shot. at it.
I
Can you respond kind of to
appreciate-
what you
thank-
heard?
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
When Kathy and I moved to Eagle Hill, it's a special place and we always want to be good neighbors. I understand I think Deborah's right. It's gonna obstruct some views. There's a structure there and there's no structure there. That's just how it is. I think we're willing to talk, but I prefer to do it in like in a cordial or a formal way, because getting bombarded with my wife, just bombarded with emails every day about this, you need a flattened roof, do this. It's very difficult with plus obviously then I gotta talk to Jack every hour, like about changes. So, but here's my perspective. Yes, I understand it's blocking the view, but just understand anytime you're grading the property and you're lowering it just for an extra few feet, just think it's like 5 more steps for my mom to walk. It's just that much more to do. And I understand your views are important, but when you start going, oh, well, my view, I get 2 more feet of view, then it's like my mom got to walk 5 steps or 10 more steps per day. It's like, it just doesn't, to us, that's how I'm seeing it as the son.
Okay, that sounds like you're willing to hear feedback. Did he address your concern, or was it? Well, we gotta call it at some point. Is there anything additional you want to add that wasn't already commented on? View obstruction, story poles, and the neighbor hearing your feedback?
Just, I'd like to emphasize, it's an aesthetic garage choice.
Got it, understood.
Okay, and
Perfect.
so I'm against that, I'm for the house,
We got
against the
that.
garage.
Okay, good deal. Okay, we'll close public comment at this point. Okay, is it different than what we've already heard? Okay,
Yes, I'm gonna make it really,
Sure.
really short, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my only point is that I understand family needs, but these are houses that will be there for generations.
absolutely.
And I just don't think these family issues, which, there's all sorts of ways to deal with mobility issues. Don't think the way to deal with mobility issues is to build a house that blocks everyone's view that will be there for hundreds of years. I just don't think that is a right way of thinking about it. And I really appreciate it if that viewpoint could be taken into account.
Okay. All right, now we'll close the public comment. K-Mac, comments or questions for the applicant?
So in looking at this design and the view impacts as they've been displayed by both like the owners and the other neighbors, the impact seems not significant compared to many other projects that we reviewed. Like quite minimal. It seems a lot of accommodation has already been made to the neighbors. I don't think that we need to prolong the decision-making process for this. It seems that this is a relatively well-designed compromise that's already in place right now. I don't really have any concern with the design currently.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is Deborah. Is that you? I think you're.
Yeah, I care about my neighbors, but I just have this.
Well, I think the issue is there's a house where there wasn't one, which is what you articulated very well. So it's gonna create a challenge. And it's gonna impact use, and it's gonna impact, people are gonna walk up and sit in the meadow and watch the sunset. But I do think that this is their property. I don't think what we're looking at is not a reasonable property. And to Ben's point, we improved the house on that block in this house has. So, I agree, like, we can talk about the garage, I think we could talk about shaving a foot off, but as a KMAC member, and staying consistent with how we rule, like, I think that this is a reasonable design choice as well.
Let's let us, we close the public, let us finish this up, if we want to comment last one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with, what the board has said so far. We have had other projects that we've, supported through to, the planning commission, that we did require them to put up story poles. And we did require that of the house on, your street.
We don't require, we ask.
Not required, we asked. And
Yeah.
so I think if that helps to make neighbors feel better about what the, what the impact of the design will be, then, I think that's something that we have suggested in the past. But I agree that, this has minimal, impacts compared to other similar projects that we have, new construction projects that we have up here.
Obviously, a lot of care and a lot of planning, a lot of time has gone into your project and with an urgency right behind you. I really do appreciate the neighbor's concern for view, and you brought up the point of the solar panels and if storyboard, poles could be considered. I know there's a delay involved. I think you would, bring more consensus and maybe there'd be that compromise, that happy compromise with no cookies at the end, with the storyboard and poles could show.
Yeah.
Wishful thinking.
There you go. Yeah, I would agree as well. I think that the project seems reasonable. I appreciate, and I know it is a burden and challenge to get all the neighborhood feedback, but I thank you for taking it in. And a lot of people don't, and they end up here and it's a lot. You can imagine that. We get a lot more. So I think you have been really sensitive to take your neighbors into consideration. You can, and this is what I would ask you to consider. You could take a continuance if you want to. You could put up story poles. That would be your option. And take into consideration the feedback that you get today. I think what we can offer you, which is what you've asked for, is maybe a more civil environment to do that. If you're willing to do that, we would be willing as KMAC members to go out, and it gives us an opportunity, which is kind of how the overlay ordinance is written, it's right. And this is where it gets really complicated sometimes, is it's realistic impacts. You are building a new home. It's got a lot, it's an empty lot. You have a right to build on that empty lot. So if you'd like, you could ask for a continuance, we could grant one. You could have an opportunity to take in the feedback and put to the neighbors. If you wanted to take more data, and you said if you don't want to, you don't have to. You could put up story poles, which was asked, and we could come by and take a look at it, and get you on to the next meeting for consideration. But that would be an extra effort to accommodate your neighbors.
I'll make the last comment,
Yes.
because we don't want to be bad neighbors, okay? And story poles, $4,800, okay, just right off. The bat. Just, and I want to know where that's gonna go. If the story poles are gonna go up and it's just another reason to like chop the project down more, you can see where that's not really helpful for me.
Yeah.
If it's about compromising the pitch of the roof, but I'd appreciate it if you want to come out and take a look at it, have a continuance, have one more meeting to talk this through. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not here to ram the project
I
through.
think you could do really
But-
simple poles too. I wouldn't ask you to, usually we have you do the whole house.
Mhm.
I think literally, I can't take the pictures of poles put up, but I think if you put up poles at what you think would be the height of where the house, I'm assuming there's probably some grading even at the street.
Oh, there's a lot of grading. on the
Yeah, they'll
street.
take it down a little bit anyway, so I think if you step in on what would be the
Put that
realistic
max height.
height and put a nice big yellow tape across it, that would, we're not talking the entire house done in story poles, we're just
Just-
talking very front.
How about just the two corners?
Yeah, that's the garage. I think that's the only thing we heard of consideration. There was no consideration of views from the side. You've got that covered. The neighbors behind were comfortable with because the trees blocked. So really the only thing we heard obstruction issues were, of course, the designer. You can still come back and say you want to do it the exact same way, and we'll make a recommendation based on that. But if you want to do that, we'll give you the opportunity. But you could do very simple poles. We're not asking for a lot.
You don't want to spend more money.
A couple barrels of cement with 2x4s and a DCL tape.
Offer to chip
Yeah.
in.
I hope to show the cost of the
Yeah.
happy.
So it sounds like your neighbors are also willing to chip in that stuff. So that's it to you, or the other side of it is we could make a recommendation based on what you presented today. And send you out to the county.
Obviously, I want to send it to the county, but
Yeah.
I did make verbal promises to the neighbors that this wouldn't be the sole meeting that we would have. But I think we've all aired out our grievances and our suggestions and things. If you want to have one more meeting to just kind of see what that looks like, if we can make story poll just to see, but obviously we like our aesthetic, but if we can find some way to make that work, and obviously we're trying to do our due diligence to be good neighbors and have our milky cookies together.
Okay, there you go. All right, bring milk and cookies to us. So it sounds like you're requesting a continuance. And the good news is the cost is also the least.
Yeah.
Cost of the least adjusted. So we've got a request for a continuance.
I got a recommendation to continue this to the next meeting.
So in a second.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Hi.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you taking the feedback from the community, taking the opportunity to look at the project.
Thanks for your time.
So, thank you. We will move on to our next project.
My pleasure, Jack. Good to meet you. Yes. Thank you. Oh, that's right, yes. Good to see you. Be well. See you next month.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
I need to go talk.
Hey, guys, we gotta keep going, we got one more to go.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. We want our milk and cookies too. David's glass of wine. Is it great?
Yes. Hi, Andrew. Good to see you. How are
Yes,
you?
hello again. Thanks, my project was done 2 months, a month and a half, 22 months. We got those 2 giant trees crashed, so thank you for your support.
Well, we did our best. I wish it could have been better, but as Shakespeare said, all's well that ends well.
The result is, actually, the insurance company was very careful.
Yeah.
Thanks for encouraging the county.
Feel free to reach out anytime. Supervisor Joy always will be helpful everywhere you can.
Yeah, we have a connection to Rubicon too. I directed Rubicon.
That's right, yeah, we
Years.
chatted about that.
That's why.
Awesome.
Thanks.
It's a fine organization.
Yeah.
See ya.
If you could move further back, guys, so we can out there.
Thank you so much. Sergeant at Arms, can you?
Right, and we're back.
All right, we will move on to 279 Calusa CDC 24-03060 ACR. Okay, I know you guys took it back and had some time to review the neighbors.
Yes.
And we put up story polls. We didn't get a chance to come see them. I don't know if you wanted to register, but we didn't get a request to come look at them.
Oh,
So we didn't know, so that one we didn't know, so apologize.
I may have, I thought I left Everett in the planner, I don't know.
Oh.
We did have them up, but it was a good exercise. We, mainly the concern was from the back neighbors.
Yeah.
We had Joel was here at the last meeting, visited. We put the polls up, originally, the height was 27.4 feet, so overall height from the low end of the house. And so, we put the poles up at that height and then went over to the house and took a look and it looked like it, a little bit too high. So, so we went back and revised and we got dropping design, I dropped the main floor a couple feet.
Okay.
And then lowered, because the top plate height on the second floor was 9 feet, and then I also adjusted the floor deck framing for the roof deck, so the overall height we brought it down was 3.8 feet. And he's communicated to us that he is was okay with it. Then I think that was honestly the biggest issue with it, is I can confirm from the polls that from where we had it that with you it was in
And
mid.
that's so somebody did, I don't know if you guys remember, somebody sent pictures.
The neighbor.
It may have been, I can try to find it here, but, so that would have been with the poll for the audit. So if we're looking at those images, then we can assume what we're probably looking at would be 3 feet shorter.
Yeah,
You did adjust, you haven't adjusted that.
yeah, I actually have photos of that, but we did adjust the, we pushed them down, about 3 feet, but
Okay,
again, the drawings, I realized it's 3.8,
okay,
it's slightly less.
okay. And you submitted 2 plans then to the county?
I have,
All right, I don't know if we got them.
I don't know, these are new to everything.
Hey, Robert, Robert, are these the new plans that they submitted to the county or no?
that looks like
The original plans?
Yeah. You want to take a minute and maybe just kind of walk us through
There's like a sparrow.
I heard,
Set us new plans, so it sounds like these guys have made an adjustment to height
okay,
of about 3.8 feet.
so you mentioned something about Everett. All that I've heard from Everett in the last month was, please make sure there's a vote on this tonight.
Well, I
There you
say,
go.
she asked me for the plan, a few days ago.
Okay.
So I emailed her a link, but I did bring a copy with me.
Okay.
So I mean, you can, I actually have both sets.
Okay.
If that helps.
We have the original set, so we can just look at the new one.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so,
you just kind of point out where you made the adjustments.
so I mean, really simply, just the whole building
From
shrunk.
3.8.
We had, yeah, we had a 9 foot, pardon my markings on there, but we had basically a 9 foot ceiling up top and an 8 foot on bottom, and then just the ceiling height. So previously, we had 27.4 from that point to that point, and we had, now it's 23.6 from that point to that point. So it's 3.8 feet. It's significant. That's a lot of difference. And we have been working with all of the neighbors, and your neighbor, you're the next neighbor next.
We'll open up comment in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but yeah, we just, yeah, I know it's okay. Just talk to us first so we get it, we get our piece, and we'll open it to public and we'll let them make a comment.
Okay,
So, okay, so that's the primary, otherwise the bulk of the stayed the same. You've gone down in height.
the floor plan stayed the same, everything stayed the same. All we did was we just switched the building down.
Okay.
To accommodate and mitigate the issues raised in the last meeting regarding view.
Yeah.
So.
You have a little bit of privacy, so it'll take,
Yeah.
not too much down, but it'll be changed up a little bit, okay?
Yeah, and the other issues that I believe this gentleman has are related to privacy. And I think initially, I'm conscious of that.
Yeah.
All the sill heights are really high, so we have really high sill heights on there, and then as well, we have on the front facing porch, we have basically
Privacy screen.
privacy screen, so it has these angled slats, kind of like a Venetian blind, but to let the air pass through, but it's designed sloped up, so you're not gonna see down, you're gonna see only the sky. So that's the thing there, and other than that, I think we have his setback to the building, he's 4 feet to the property line, and this thing is about 10 feet, so that's 14
Yeah, I know
feet.
it did
I think.
require variance.
So, yeah, we're not asking for variance, yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna keep it succinct. We haven't previous.
Yeah,
Any questions?
Lengthy.
that's straightforward.
Okay. We can draw it. You wanna take see if we've got anybody online first, so we can see if we can.
Yeah, that's weird.
We have a commenter online.
Yeah, if you could give us your name and your address, that would be great. Rick?
This is Rick Spiro. Yeah. I was hoping to go after David Gerstal. Is he there today?
Sure. Let's keep it, I know you presented last time, keep it to the, maybe comments to the.
So be as concise as I can be.
Awesome, there we go.
First of all, let me say, I've never seen these revised plans.
Yeah.
It doesn't change much. The most important thing to say going in is that, before the last meeting, I simply didn't know about it until just a very few days before. And I didn't have time to do the analysis, particularly regarding bulk scale and ground floor area to parcel size ratio that I have had a chance to do since. I would have put these on. And that's gonna
We
be.
did get your email as well, so we do have.
Oh, good. I'm glad you had a chance to look at it. So let me plunge in. Here's what I'm gonna speak about. First of all, I'm gonna very lightly go over the concerns addressed in the Kensington ordinance. I want to mention, by the way, I looked up the meaning of ordinance, it means law, and it's not just a guideline. So after I just slightly touch on those provisions in the Kensington ordinance that are germane to the proposed construction of a full-size second home on a substandard lot of 279 Calusa, which is what I'll be speaking about. After I go over the ordinance lightly, I'll go over a few specifics of the project that that the ordinance addresses.
Can I just ask, and You guys can shut me up if you want
Yeah.
to, but like, since the first one went so long and we're basically over time now for our meeting anyway, and we want to give as much time as possible. Just one, to finish my thought,
Yeah.
please. So I understand that you have a lot of thoughtful comments. We are very familiar with the ordinances and whatnot, so you do not need to educate us on the ordinances. What you do need to do is basically identify if there are still existing issues that have not been resolved.
So
Yeah.
you just took a lot more time telling me what not to say than I would have spent saying what I had to say.
So you
But
guys
so
are-
be it. I'm gonna be concise
Go
as
for
I
it.
can,
Cool.
believe me.
Okay, great.
I'm grateful to you guys for the work you do, and I respect
Appreciate it.
that it's late and time is passing. So, I'm gonna say that the categories covered by the Kissing ordinance that I am concerned about are bulk and scale, and within that, the gross floor area to parcel size ratio in particular. Other issues that are germane are compatibility with neighborhood, privacy, light and solar access, view protection, off-street parking, and compatibility with neighborhood. Now, I will be very brief about touching on the issues called out in the Kensington ordinance, that are actually germane to the proposed project. First of all, I appreciate your lowering the house from the point of view of reducing impact on Rixham, and somewhat on my property at 283 Calusa. That's Julia's home. Hopefully permanent lifetime home. However, we're still gonna have that rooftop deck, and that rooftop deck will look right down into the backyard of 283 Calusa, my property, so that residents who might like to sit in a lounge chair or sunbathe in a bathing suit in that backyard will look up and see themselves possibly being observed, and that's very uncomfortable. I don't think that roof deck should be there. As to view, light, and solar access, I'll be extremely succinct. Even at the lowered heights, the building at its two ends extends past the walls of 283 Calusa and just towers over our yards and imposes on it. Now, that said, let me get to the big issue, and that's the bulk and scale issue. I will mention before I get to that, story poles, by the way, those story poles don't tell the story. Maybe you guys should come out with the property, look at them, really see what I'm talking about when I object to the property. But now let me get to the big issue for me. That's bulk, scale, and the ratio issue. The numbers in the plans as presented are, in my opinion, say it as gently as I can, not valid. First of all, they're not valid as to the size of the parcel. The parcel is 129 by 40 feet, I believe. I've got a spreadsheet here with the exact numbers, which I'll give to you in a moment. The numbers proposed in the plan for the 50% of the parcel size are about 200 square feet high. The parcel size is exaggerated for the sake of the ratio by 200 square feet. Now we get to the really critical issues, and the ones that are most difficult to understand because they involve numbers. The gross floor area of the proposed new home and the existing full-size home at the front of the property are severely understated. Let me deal first with the proposed new home. The ordinance specifically says when you figure GFA, you must measure to the outside of the exterior walls. The plans I've looked at don't show any exterior dimensions. They only show interior dimensions. In other words, they present square foot of living area, not gross floor area as defined in the ordinance. That's one. Two, the ordinance is very specific in saying that a deck, like we have, like a little redwood deck protruding out from the house, is not part of gross floor area. But the deck, which has been excluded from the gross floor area calculation of this gentleman, does not account for what isn't really not that sort of deck. It's a second-story deck covered by the same roof as the rest of the top floor, extending out over that deck. And in fact, that deck is a finished area enclosed on both sides, but would amount to partial walls. It is full-on gross floor area, habitable space.
Yeah, and to just be clear, we look at what the county provides us. if you want to make an argument with the county over the floor area, that's the place to make the argument. You know, and I will comment too on the gross floor area itself. Again, it is a recommendation, and what it does, the only thing it's there for is to give us guidance, and it triggers a mandatory hearing if somebody goes over it. But we do have plenty of houses in Kensington that are well over the recommended or the threshold
So
set by the gross floor
are
area.
you telling me that this whole concern I'm expressing to the effect that the gross floor area ratio is 30% over the recommended guideline is just not relevant and I shouldn't
No,
continue?
no, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying.
Okay, that's
that
what I
the facts of the gross floor area will be determined by the county.
Oh, I see,
Not
okay.
by me and not by anyone else.
Okay.
That's the county. So if there's a complaint, make it the county and they'll take a look at whether the gross.
Well, we may have to do that on appeal. Let me just go ahead and promptly.
And so I'd say you're over 5
Okay.
minutes, so if you could close out.
I will, okay. I'll close out by saying, I'll just give it one sentence. The existing house, which is a full-size residence, has a garage and a lower level, which according to the definitions in the Kensington ordinance are part of gross floor area and are not included in the calculations, the numbers included in the plans that I was given. Final point. None of the suggested solutions that I've offered a number, and can offer more, would prevent Robel and Miriam from building an adequately sized new family home. We got together, by the way, at their home. They were extremely gracious. We had a friendly meeting, and I think we committed ourselves to working through this hearing process in a friendly way. But I want to emphasize why I know they can build a family home without building a home that imposes so heavily on my property. And the reason is I have 3 times built full-size family homes.
We can't make a recommendation. I appreciate it, but we can't speak to, and I know you have a deep background in construction. It's irrelevant. They've done a project with their architect based on their family needs. And again, we can only comment on the things that are within the Kensington ordinance, not on recommendations of design and anything else outside.
Well, I mean, this is within the Kensington ordinance.
Design is not.
No, but gross floor area
It
to
is, and we will take
parcel
it-
size
we will
area
take it into
is.
consideration.
Pardon?
We will take it into consideration.
I'm very disappointed. I think that this is a very big project. I've very carefully worked out my presentation. I've been very brief. I would have been briefer if I had not been interrupted.
Perfect.
And I have to say I'm disappointed, Chris.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Additional comments from the public?
Yeah, this is Rick Spiro.
Okay, thanks, Rich.
I'm the owner of 280 Coventry, which is to the rear and diagonal from 279 Calusa. So I'm against the project in its current form because I believe there will be privacy and view obstruction impacts to my property due to the proposed height of the building and particularly the roof deck on top. So there were some photos that I had Robert Rogers forward to you guys.
You're 279, sorry, 280, right? Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Right.
Gotcha, okay.
So if you guys have those, so they just show that regarding the story poles that were installed, show that there is potentially a view obstruction, and that I'm just assuming that if it's going to be if those poles that are visible are according to the architect that I communicated with. Probably are the portion of the building that would be the maybe the top around the top level of the roof deck.
Is it 27 feet?
The ones that are, as it is currently, is 23 feet.
Okay, so I'm assuming you took your picture in the last day or so after they made the adjustment to poles? You know?
No, these were probably a couple of days ago. So
When did you change the poles?
Before that.
Okay, so that helps us because then we can see that your pictures are relevant. Thank you.
okay. So my understanding is the poles that are visible there are probably the roof deck. I don't know if Thomas can comment to that, but so I'm imagining that if one were to put furniture up on that roof deck, or say a roof or a shade umbrella or something, so there's already impact to the view, and if you put furniture up on that roof deck, which I'm assuming you would do, then it would impact the view even more. So that's kind of my main concern. And then obviously there's, privacy concerns with regard to the backyard, the rear deck and living room and the kitchen from my property. So that's pretty much all I've got for you guys.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
How tall is the shading, the fencing around the road?
It's, so we had two sets of poles. One defined the top of the parapet on the outside of the deck. So it is approximately 6 inches above the peak of the roof, or 3'10" above the low the point of the eave.
I think the question more is like, how deep is that parapet? Like how?
It's a 3-foot wall around, essentially. So if I've got furniture there, am I gonna see furniture, or am I gonna see?
Well, it has to be 3'6" above the floor.
Above the floor, so, okay, so it's 3'6" above the floor. So then furniture would sit below that, but the umbrella would be probably.
And the likelihood of using an umbrella because of the wind, I'm thinking it's gonna be pretty low. I mean, who would use an umbrella on a windy roof deck? And plus the fog?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's, you guys are just 3 people, very little, you have a growing family, but.
We have a toddler, we don't plan to be up there like that. And the view is looking at our house and not looking back or to the side, like the view is this.
Yep, understood. Is there, thank you. Additional comments?
Sorry, I'm not feeling super well, so I might sit down. So I'm Julie Arena, and I live at 283 Calusa, which is right next door to this property. And we're Bill and Mary are lovely people and wonderful neighbors. And I just want to emphasize that I believe this process should be about numbers and the ordinance. I have a degree in architecture, and I worked in architecture and planning for 10 years. I've also lived in Kensington for 11 years and the area for almost 40 years. So I'm very invested in this neighborhood. I have studied the ordinance, and as far as the numbers go, I think it's really important to understand what they're asking for and why they're asking for it, because I haven't really heard an explanation for why they're asking for it. So by my calculation, which is very clearly spelled out in the ordinance, which was, from what I understand, put together by very smart people over a long period of time, they put considerable thought into this document. The maximum GFA threshold is 2539. So they're asking for almost 32% over the GFA threshold. I haven't heard any reason why that should be granted. If it were me running the process or presenting as an architect, I would be very systematic. I'd say, this is the GFA threshold. We're asking for 10% more for such and such reason. That hasn't happened. One thing also to note is, given the original building on the lot, which is 1473, the maximum additional GFA permitted is only 1066. So they're calling the original house an ADU, and then they're trying to build an almost 1900 square foot house in addition to their 1500 square foot ADU. So that really seems out of line to me in terms of numbers. It seems like it places an unreasonable burden on the space and on the neighbors. And I really have a question for this council, which is, what is an acceptable GFA overage? And why is it acceptable? I feel like, people are owed like an explanation to the thought process as to why you would grant 32% over. And if you would grant that, what does that mean for the precedent that you're setting for all of Kensington and future construction? I think these are really important decisions. So I put together some numbers where I put 5% over, 10% over, 15% over, etc. And I just calculated out what the numbers would be if we were proposing an overage. And this is what I came up with. And I really think it would be fair to present a design-based and an ordinance-based argument as to why they're requesting it. I think that's reasonable with this council, given that this is such an important ordinance. This is a guideline.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Let's let her finish, and then we'll do it.
That's what I got.
Yeah.
We actually have these though, right? You have your email. You have this, so you know. That's not just.
You done? No, you're done. Okay, cool.
And I think, I think it's necessary.
Just letting you know we had it.
I have paper copies of this, so I'll pass them out to you. May as well see you. Also, yeah.
Pause there, so close to the public, and then would you like to address the comment?
Yeah, I want to make, I've always found it interesting that Kensington uses within their gross square footage like other restrictions might not, which is, they use non-habitable area. The reason why, my clients who are, hardworking, young family, are choosing to add, to build this, structure at the rear, it's for a very valid and important reason, which is that during the construction, they can basically live in their current residence. They don't have to go outside, they don't have to renovate their existing house, just so they can squeeze themselves within this, gross square footage. So that's the reason, and, the main reason is that the area, the reason they're not using the other area that the county says is, also gross, it's not habitable. It's substandard ceiling there, so. This is.
Under the house.
Yeah, it's, you can't call it habitable.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
We.
And there's other jurisdictions that do not include the garage for gross square footage, or like Tiburon, they have like an offset.
Yeah, again, we rely on the county to validate.
Yeah.
Sorry, what we got from the county is what we can offer, and again, from our perspective, it's a mandatory trigger threshold. It isn't a recommendation or anything. So I would say there are plenty of projects over, and I'd say probably the most driving reason for it is the fact that you're adding an ADU. And in the state of California, if your 2,600 square foot house had existed, you'd be able to add the ADU. So we're kind of working a little bit in reverse, but that's why the property insurance is going over the Florida ratio, which you can put in second drawing. Yeah. And there's
Something that
standards in California you can do. There you go. So we'll close then. Any questions or comments before the public close to, yeah, any other comments or questions for the applicant? No, okay. All right, then I would say comments among each other.
You just made one that, like, I was just going to discuss with y'all, it seems like it's a reversible situation.
Yeah.
So there's like, if they had the bigger house, they could still have the ADU and be allowed to do all this stuff. So that's something that weighs on my mind in terms of assessing this project. Yeah, I think that also the accommodations that you guys made, thank you for giving a shot, thank you for sort of goals up, thanks for making the adjustments so far. It might not satisfy all the neighbors, but the fact that we do that effort, that's important. And I think that that's why we have these meetings and why we want to have these types of discussions, is to try and make sure that we can do an agreement. Sometimes it's not possible, but oftentimes that going through this process really does help maintain those neighborly relationships and make sure that we can kind of continue to have a strong community together that allows us to grow and fill in very small parcels, but not necessarily, like, we can't always satisfy everybody's needs all at the same time, but we should be able to do that.
Well, thanks everybody for taking the time to get together. Put a lot of effort into the number we pulled together, you as well, so I appreciate you guys kind of looking more your perspective, and you guys can dialogue. I'm in a place where I think that the biggest issue, the two biggest issues right here are both you raised, which is driven by the gross floor area. But Chris is right, it triggers a meeting where we decide whether it's reasonable. That's how we raise reading for us. That's how we look at it, site visit, you decide, is it reasonable? The gross floor area does trigger this meeting. The county wanted to shut it down because that's a different story. For us, our job is to have a meeting, have a discussion, decide whether it's reasonable. I don't, and then same with your review as well. I don't feel that I can tell from what information I have right now, whether it's reasonable. I think we do need to do a site visit. You guys have invested in story poles. I think if we visit, we can go through the different perspectives, your house, Rick's house, we can see, and talk to you guys with concerns, you can show story poles, and we can make a determination. Apologies if we weren't able to go before this meeting, because ideally that would have happened. I think we can still set up that.
I'm not sure why I had it and let you guys know that.
Yeah. And still for the press.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what my approach would be to, I think, you know, we owe it to neighbors to understand your perspective, to be able to visually see if bulk is really the true issue that's preventing neighbors from, or finding any common ground here, because we've done, you know, your part lowering, which I think is, you as the homeowner can do what, you can design the house the way that you want, neighbors don't design the house for you. But, you know, we do need to all live next to each other and come to some sort of common ground. So I do think that I would like to, you know, go and see the perspective with the story goals from the different. This committee has approved projects that are over the threshold in many different occasions, so it's not like this is a unique situation. And as you know, we continue to grow families and have bigger families, of this ordinance was written a long time ago, and we have to be adaptive. And these are some substandard lot sizes most of the time that create really unique and complicated situations.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, I would say the same. I know it's an extra burden for you, but, you know, generally speaking, I think you've done a great job of making some adjustments to it. It'd be really helpful. You may never completely win your neighbors over. And again, you do ultimately design your product, but it would give us an opportunity. What we exist for is to be that kind of neutral third party to take a look, because we have a vested interest as being part of the community and being Kensington residents, but not necessarily being the neighbor right next door. And we do live in a small lot neighborhood. I look directly into my neighbor's kitchens, they look directly into mine. My deck is directly, my deck is directly next to my neighbor's deck. I could throw him a hot dog on him and barbecue. I don't think I even have 3 feet to the property line because my house was built before 1928. So we are a small lot, small community, in a very dense urban area. So what you're asking for is not unreasonable, but I think giving the opportunity for KMAC to come and take a look at it, we'll get you on to the next meeting. But the recommendation would help going forward to the county, because I think we'll still face some challenges going to the county. But if we can get out there, take a look, take a reasonable view of it, and that's really what we're here for. We could probably move you along faster than you might otherwise. So it's really up to you guys if you want to take that one more opportunity. We'll make the commitment to make sure we get out there and we can get you on the next meeting, which is March 26th.
Yes.
Switch it back a little bit, but then move you a few steps forward.
You'd be the first one reviewed too.
And then we can take a look, like, as I said, we go to adjacent neighbors, we go to Rick's house, we go to the houses next door. We can take a look, and again, similar to the project you heard earlier, you're building a house where there isn't one. And so it's going to create some issues, and you can see if that's reasonable.
It sounds like it would be a quick meeting, once you all have a chance.
We'll put you first on the agenda too, which next time we gotta remember to do that. You should have gone up first, so we'll put you up first and we'll get you in and out as quickly as we can.
And guys, if you need to communicate with the KMAC for scheduling or anything, come to me, please.
Okay, let me get your
Email address.
I really, if you do come up with the story posts, I hope you bring the plans, because as far as I can tell
We will.
from reading the plans, they're not accurate.
No, there's gonna be a few plans, so I think if we get that, so
The
that,
distance from the existing building to proposed building is presented as farther away than it actually is. They're not square, they're put up at an angle, so I don't think they're.
these aren't the accurate plans, so that they have submitted new plans. So
You're saying the poles are not accurate. The poles are not accurate, and not
we can
even
take a
square.
look, but again, that'll ultimately.
Or is it tree?
I'll double check.
I know, but that's why you get professional to do that.
We
That's
can-
why it's a lot of money, but.
We'll have to take a look with what they provided, and that's the best we can offer. So I'd say it is closed to public, so it's really up to the applicant. If you'd like us to come take a look at what you got, we're more than glad to do that. And again, you know,
It's your choice of whether or not you
Yeah.
want to post one or make it.
Fine, I just want to point out that the story poles from what you guys said last time are not who fired.
Yep.
They're recommended.
They're
so
best
they
effort.
were done. So I don't think they need to be surveyed and all this other stuff that we were.
We don't
asked
have the
that they
resources to do that either. And again, ultimately, the county will make sure that
Yeah. And then
the
like
house
huge
is put in a
trees,
position
like,
on the
all
property where you said it was right. But we can get at least an indication of the accuracy of it. So are you open to that?
I think so. I think
Okay.
the consensus is, yeah.
Am I able to speak or not?
Well, no, because we're gonna close and we'll make an action, and we'll have an opportunity to talk to your neighbors in the next 30 days. So
I'll make a recommendation to, this month,
to continue to, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that continues on, so it allows you guys to have a continued discussion, and it'll give us an opportunity to get out. We'll take a look at the property and understand the issues that were.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Sure, well, we can go ahead, we can conclude, but yeah, you want to say before the last.
Hey, guys. We can come out with.
Do we make a motion?
We can do the 6-story house.
Any opposed? Motion.
Karen McBoard?
And I will,
Oh, I'm sorry that we have a speaker who would like to go. I see this is Chief Reinhardt. How are you?
Oh, not chief, but thank you. It's not the chief, but I am your county.
Remind me your I know, remind me your title again, Michelle.
I am your county coordinator.
Wonderful.
And even though I was not able to speak during the public comment period, I would like to know if the MAC chair and MAC board would like to hear an update from Confire.
We would. Could you please hold just a moment, Michelle?
Yes.
Thank you.
yeah, we have to go on Tuesday because.
No, I can't go with you there.
No, you can, yeah, well, you can show us your property, we'll go in parties to avoid any kind of issues.
Prior to adjournment,
That's correct.
Beautiful.
We'll get you there, we'll get, next time, there you go. And again,
Prior-
just so you guys know, we'll visit the neighbor, go ahead.
thank you. Prior to adjournment, can we hear one speaker? Thank you.
Yeah, I just say, just so you guys know, you could go, but we will, we'll come in parties of two, so because we can't all chat together by the crowd. But we'll look for the neighbor's yard, your yard, yeah, and it will just be up here. The neighbor's gonna be there.
Go 2 at a time.
Yeah, sure. You guys, next time.
Thank you, appreciate the effort. Yeah, go ahead. We were almost adjourned. We're gonna undo our adjournment.
I'm so sorry,
Okay.
Chair and Vice Chair and MAC board members. I am your county coordinator, Michelle Reinhardt, embedded with Confire. Please forgive me for not being in person in the horrible lighting from my hotel room, but I am conducting training out of the area. So I just wanted to provide you a quick update considering the SoCal fires and incidents related immediately to our district. All jurisdictions are experiencing an increase in FireWise requests, and we are working to accommodate them. All jurisdictions throughout the county have means of support to FireWise communities, and we are looking to meet that need. The county coordinator, my position, currently embedded with Confire, but serving all of Contra Costa County, continues to be Measure X funded for the months of January and February, with the possibility of returning to grant funding from CAL FIRE in the coming months. I will keep the MAC board informed as a new grant application details and information become available. And if the Contra Costa County Fire Protection District chooses to apply for the new grant of funding for this position, we will seek approval from our fire board. Finally, there have been some questions about water service. There's been a lot of misinformation about water needed in response. And I would like to provide you with the messaging from Confire. In Contra Costa County, fire service is distinctly different from water service. While we work closely with each of the water purveyors in our jurisdiction, your specific water purveyor would need to be contacted to understand their maintenance, repairing, upgrading, and replacing of fire hydrants. We at Contra Costa County Fire Protection District, along with the Kensington Fire Protection District, provide emergency services to a vast array of areas within the county, including urban, suburban, and rural areas. Each of these areas come with their unique circumstances, and we are prepared to respond no matter where the call for help
is received from. We encourage all to check our website for, and sign up for the community warning system for alerts and other timely critical information. On to my final point. On Monday, the local responsibility area maps were released from CAL FIRE. And we have 30 days to initiate the public information regarding the local responsibility area maps. In a preliminary effort to conduct outreach, ConFire has a website dedicated to this LRA rollout, along with frequently asked questions and other information about the local responsibility area and how that differs from the state responsibility area. Robert has the link for our LRA maps, and I'm happy to provide that again if requested to do so. My phone number, if you have any questions or wish to ask me questions offline, is 925-440-5831. I thank you very much for your time, and I will obviously get out of your way so you may adjourn your meeting.
Any questions, anybody?
No.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. especially
Thank
for
you
what-
very much. Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Have a
Good
good day.
night.
All right, now do I hear a motion?
Second.
All right.
Third.
All in favor? Say aye.